So look, if you're a guy over 40 and you want to build your strength, there is a few things I want you to consider before jumping into some sort of a strength training program. First of all, let's define what it means to be strong. And just for our purposes and what I do in Athletic After 40 with my clients is we value strength, meaning that you can manipulate external objects. And I'm talking about heavy stuff, right? Because someone that's very, very strong doesn't mean that they can do a bunch of pull-ups or a bunch of push-ups. That's a component of strength, but it's very different when you're tasked with lifting up something heavy from the floor, right? Whether it's a kid or a box from the garage, whatever that might be, there are times in our life where we got to lift something heavy. And I don't care how many push-ups you do, or how many pull-ups you do, or how many air squats you do, or how many lunges you do, there is some value to practicing lifting heavy things. So again, for our purposes, strength means your ability to lift heavy stuff. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we can train your body to become stronger, to be able to manipulate heavy stuff. And I'm just going to use two buckets. There is the bodybuilder bucket and there is the human performance bucket. Now, they are actually very different. You might think they're the same, but they're very, very different because in the bodybuilding bucket, when you're doing strength training, most of the stuff is done in a very kind of controlled manner. We're sitting down a lot, which takes a lot of the coordination and balance and stability through the center, through your core. We take that out when we're sitting down and leaning back on the bench, right? So we don't want to eliminate that because that's really, really important when we're trying to function in everyday life. But the intention with a bodybuilder is to really, really focus on just one specific muscle. Like if I'm doing bicep curls, it might be better just to sit on the bench, to lean back and do bicep curls that way because you can spend more of your focus and your energy into that just one individual muscle group. Now, great for bodybuilding, but not great for human performance, right? So when you're sitting on machines and you're just focusing on individual muscles, there is not a lot of value there, in my opinion, when you're a guy over 40 who just wants to live a highly functional, very strong life, right? So there's the bodybuilding side. Now the performance side, we really look at kind of the big picture here. When you're manipulating heavy objects, usually you're not sitting in a chair. Usually you're not leaning up against something. Usually you're not focused on just one individual muscle. Instead, we look at the human body as one giant muscle. And when it comes to human performance, that's the muscle that we want to really strengthen, literally from the toenails to the fingernails. Now, there's a few different ways we can do this, but if we're talking about strength, and I'm even going to throw power in there, if we're talking about strength and power, one of the things that I'm always chasing when it comes to human performance is efficiency. How do we build the most amount of strength in the least amount of time that will carry over very well into everyday life? Meaning that there is a component of stability, there's a component of core strength, there's a component of balance, there's a component of coordination. All of these things are incredibly valuable, right? So how do we do that in the most efficient way possible? Well, there is one tool that I find is the best, most efficient tool for the job. It is a precision instrument that every single person that is strong in this world, and think athletes, there is one tool that every athlete uses in their strength conditioning world because of its efficiency and because it's just so good. It's so good. You can build incredible strength, and that is a barbell. And as you can see behind me, maybe it's a little bit blurred out, but you can see I've got barbells. I've got squat racks here. And the barbell is a way for you to build incredible strength and power in the shortest amount of time. But here's the deal. You have to be willing to learn the ways of the barbell. You have to be willing to learn what it means to move your body in a very, very efficient way and a very, very safe way, because there is a right way to do this and there's a wrong way to do this. And for a lot of people, when I mention the barbell, it scares them. And if you don't really know what you're doing, that would make sense because maybe you know somebody, or maybe you've even had an experience in your life where you hurt yourself doing a deadlift, or you hurt yourself doing a back squat, or you know somebody that hurt themselves. It's so common. And I talk to so many people who they cringe a little bit when they hear the barbell. But here's the deal. Most guys over 40 have never been taught how to move their body well. A lot of guys are like, yeah, I used to do that when I was in my 20s and my 30s. But look, back then, nobody really kind of knew what they were doing. right? It was a little bit of a mess back then. We were still trying to figure out biomechanics. We were still trying to figure out how to build coordination and what the best positions were for the hips and the knees and the ankles and the feet and the shoulders and the elbows and all these kinds of things. But I'll tell you what, a lot has happened over the last 30 years in the world of human performance. And now we know how to move very, very well and how to help you to move very, very well so that you can use that barbell and your risk of injury will be almost zero. Now, there's a whole progression that you're going to need to go through because, again, like anything, you have to learn the skills. And if you're willing to spend the time to learn the skills, I promise you, you will become stronger than you ever thought possible. And you'll do it in a very, very safe and a very, very efficient way. If you've done barbell stuff before and you're a little bit afraid, well, that's your cue that maybe you should take a look at this and you should dig in just a little bit deeper as to what you're actually doing here, because there's a really good chance you don't know the stuff that you should know in order to maximize and in order to be safe. And that's what we do in Athletic Under 40. We teach you just by using a wooden stick how to create beautiful positions, how to create beautiful shapes. And I'll give you an example. I used to do some training at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, and specifically in the world of weightlifting. Now, weightlifting, the sport of weightlifting, if you ever watch the Olympics and you see these guys and these girls lifting these incredible weights from the floor into these overhead positions, that is the sport of weightlifting. And there's only one way that we can get these athletes to train day in and day out and year after year after year so that they can be ready for the Olympics, and that's by teaching them what they need to do and what the positions need to be and how they should be moving their body and what kind of shapes they need to get into in order to stay safe, again, for the amount of training that they're doing. And we can apply those same things with anybody, just at a different degree, right? So when I'm there, one of the head coaches there, he was a guy from Poland, and he always used to say, beautiful movements. His English wasn't very good. I love him. He was amazing. He was a gold medalist back in like the 70s. So this guy was incredible. But he would always tell his athletes, beautiful movements. And that is so true, because if you understand what beautiful movement looks like and how to control your one muscle, toenails to fingernails, if you really spend the time learning that, again, it will serve you for the rest of your life. You can stay strong, you can stay powerful, you can have amazing balance, amazing coordination, great stability, great core strength, and everything works together just like an Olympian. Again, I know you're not going for the Olympics, but we can train like an Olympian just at a lesser degree, and it will serve you for the rest of your life. So don't fear the barbell, don't fear heavy weights, because if you know what you're doing, that's what's going to help you to stay safe and build yourself to amazing levels. All right, hopefully it helps. And if you'd like some help, hit me up in Messenger and I'll share with you how we might be able to get you on this journey to build your strongest self.